part is 20 minutes. Is that right?
Yeah, I gave you about 20 minutes for every section. When you're in a live workshop, it could vary depending on, if you've gone longer on other sections or, how much activity is involved. The problem with this, not the problem, the caution that I give with this principle is that it's the last principle in the workshop. So by that point, some of the coaches might be a little overwhelmed by all the information, and it might be getting a little bit later if it's in the evening. So I usually encourage trainers to make honoring the game just as interactive and just as important as all the other principles, even though it's later in the night.
Okay, great. How's the light? It seems a little dark in this room I'm using. Can you see me okay?
Yeah, it's okay. I love that picture behind you.
Yeah, some crazy modern art. It's not mine. I'm in a room in the building I live in, so it's not my choice. Respectfully.
Yeah. I thought you were some funky modern artist. I was all excited. All right. Well, we are ready whenever you are, Adam.
Okay. Excellent. So, good morning, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. So, we are at the final principle this morning of equal importance. So, our principles are not more important than another. So, we're honoring the game. So this is a massive, massive part of what we do here at PCA. We've got to honor the game. And we use the acronym you can see on the screen, ROOTS, ROOTS. And I want to jump straight into these and start breaking them down and then go through some scenarios with the group. So let's jump straight in there. R are the rules. Rules are obviously important as a coach. There are gray areas sometimes that we, in a game, and throughout your career as a coach, I don't know if anyone can if anyone's experienced this, there's sometimes gray areas where you may not have seen a call, where you don't say something about a call. And we can let it run as a coach. Yeah, has anyone experienced that during a game where might be an offside, so the ball didn't go out, for example? Has anyone, and there's been an opportunity for you not to say something?
I played field hockey, and every time the ball hits your foot, it's supposed to be a foul. And there were many, many times when the coach would just say, if it hits your foot and nobody sees it, just keep playing. And that was something that, in a crowd, it's hard for the ref to see. So.
Yeah, and I think the most important thing here when we're honoring and respecting rules is respecting the spirit of the game and the spirit which the game should be played in. So that's rules. Second, opponents. So this is always an interesting one, I find. Do any of you here have maybe a team that you play against, another organization where there's a big rivalry?
Yes.
Yeah, and have you ever experienced it where rather than just being another game on the schedule, it becomes this sort of builds up this big sort of event and almost battle, for want of a better term?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I've certainly experienced that as a coach. And I think that comes from professional sports, where their mentality is very much win at all costs. But as custodians of the game, as double goal coaches within the youth environment, we've got to let our players know that, yeah, we want to win, but the opponents aren't the enemy. We want to be competitive, but we've got to be mindful, though, without the opponents, we don't have a game. So let's respect the opponents. Officials. Now, this is always a tough one for me, especially around the area where I play. I coach soccer and play quite a few soccer leagues around here. Officials can be challenging at times. I don't know if anyone else has experienced that. They tend to be, may just be around here, officious just to be officious. If players don't have the right colour socks, in the leagues I play, they don't let them play, which before a game can be a little bit frustrating, but hey, they're the rules. We all agreed to those rules at the start of the season. And if a player doesn't have a card at the start of the season, start of a game, sorry, they can't play. So we've got to respect the officials. During the game, before the game, after the game. T takes us to teammates. Now, does anyone here have a player within their team, either currently or previously, who was arguably one of your best players, might be the best player, but was a lousy teammate?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Ruben, how did you handle that? Why was that difficult? Why was that difficult to keep the team dynamic?
Well, I think anytime you have a player who's not a team player, it creates difficulties. But in particularly when it's a player who's on the field a lot, on the court a lot, who the other players look up to in some format, it impacts the others, and it makes it hard for the others to be team players as well.
Yeah. So how did you handle that? What did you do to address that and try and change it?
Well, I try to talk to the player and explain to him how he was affecting the team and his teammates, and he's a player who wanted to win, like most of the players, and so I tried to make a connection between him being a team player and the team succeeding.
Yeah, that's great. I think making that connection and explaining to them, I think as coaches and speaking for myself in particular, it's very easy to assume that players know how to be a team player, especially with younger players. I think we've got to proactively and intentionally let them know the importance of being a team player and how that ultimately is going to help them be more successful on and off the field. So great, thank you. And last but still not least, S brings us to self. And this is just simply, again, being intentional and encouraging our players that regardless of what's going on around them, regardless of how the opponents are or officials, is just to have high levels of excellence. Just being the best they can be and carrying themselves in the best way they can at all times, again, regardless of what's going on around them. So if you can break up now, we're going to do a scenario. You can break up into groups of 2, ideally with somebody that you haven't spoken to or spent time with this afternoon. 2.5 minutes, we're going to go through a scenario and then come back and see what thoughts we've got and see how different people handle it. So here we go. Everyone's in the groups? Okay. I'll read this out and we'll jump straight into it. 2.5 minutes. The opposing coach has been riding the refs the entire game, and it seems to be working. Now, in the final moments of a close game, the official makes a horrible call against your team. What can you do? Okay, 2.5 minutes. Excellent. So, who would like to go first? Who would like to share first how they would handle this as a coach? Any volunteers?
Sure, I'll share. We just talked about how this is really hard to do, but we have to remember that our players are watching us, and especially coaching, younger than 10-year-olds, U10, it's really important that we are a good role model, set a good example for them. So I think even though all of us have admitted it's really hard to do, I think we really just try to keep a cool head and just move on and kind of ignore it. And that seems to help. It doesn't show that the kids that were angry at the call. We're just moving on because it's part of the game.
Have you actually experienced that in your career? I mean, recently, Kelly, with any of your
teams? I had a ref last summer make a horrible call, and it was getting dangerous. The ref wasn't making calls that he should have been making, and the players were getting hurt because he wasn't making calls because the other coach was screaming at him the whole time that, putting pressure on him. So he was choosing not to make the calls that he should have made, and there were girls getting hurt. So it was very upsetting.
And how did you communicate this to your players, if at all? I mean, how did you sort of handle that with your players, seeing that?
I just told them that they have to play as hard as they can. And, it's a rough game. Sometimes it's a physical game and the ref doesn't see everything. But, just be as hard of a player and tough as a player as you can. And I'll talk to the ref at halftime is what I told them.
Right. And how did it sort of transpire? What was the final outcome? Not the score, but the experience and the game.
It wasn't the nicest ref ever. So I went over at halftime very, very nicely and just said, I'm a little concerned that some of these kids are getting hurt. Some of the calls some of the checks that they're doing are dangerous and you're not calling them. Maybe we could call a little bit tighter game so that these kids aren't getting hurt. And he was not very open to my recommendation. He said, "Would you like the whistle, lady?" And that was my response from the ref. But I think it got a little bit better.
And was this in front of your players, or did you do this away from your players?
I went it away from the players. I walked over at halftime by myself, and my assistant coach talked to the girls.
Right. And did your players know what you were doing?
Yeah, they did. I told them I was going to go over just to double check. I had a couple questions for the ref about some calls.
Right. Excellent. Ruben, you got any experiences, or what did your group come up with? Anything you'd like to share?
Well, for one, we all agreed that it happens all the time, and whether it's at the end of the game or sometime during the game, there's always going to be, So, one thing we thought is we feel like you go ahead and acknowledge to the players that you're in agreement that the call was not the right call, because I think sometimes just the acknowledgement that, hey, referee, we think the call was wrong, just like you do. However, we got a game to play, and we got to focus on what we can control, and compete to our fullest abilities, which means not get distracted by this call. So again, it's communication and talking and helping the players focus on what they can control is what we thought.
Excellent. I love that. What you said at the start is these bad calls are inevitable, not because the referees or the officials are bad at what they do. They're human. They can't see everything. So it's very much how we respond to those situations. So great. Excellent. So just some tools here that I wanted to share with you. Something that you can take away as coaches to make sure we're honouring the game, and we're really being proactive about this when we're out on the field with our players. So, as you both just shared, then modelling and teaching how to honour the game all the time is massively important, and I feel that we should be doing this on the practice field and on game day, because the way you practice is the way you play. So we're role models, as Kelly mentioned. We're role models all the time. Our players look up to us. They see how we respond. So we should be modeling and teaching that all the time. The self-control routine. Anyone here had moments where they felt like they were going to combust on the side of a field? Yeah, I see a few nodding heads there. Mm-hmm. How do you handle that? I mean, Ruben, how do you handle that situation? It might be a bad call. It might be, whatever it is on the field. Just a moment where you're frustrated. How do you manage that yourself?
Well, I think I do it by through self-talk. I remind myself, like you said, that how important it is for me to model appropriate behavior in those moments. I want my players to be composed, and focus on what they can control, like I said earlier. So I feel like I have to lead the way as far as that goes. So that tends to help me keep my focus
Yeah.
Keep my cool.
Yeah, self-talk is something I do as well. It's really powerful. And I think as our players, they prepare for games through practice. As a coach, we can prepare for those moments. So whether it's self-talk, one that I use is counting to 10, just to try and center yourself again and respond rather than react. Coaches that I know, I don't know if anyone here does this, turn away for a few moments. You mean just very subtly they turn away and put their back to the field. Anyone do that? Anyone turn away from the field? Back. Yeah, something I use as well. Narrated modeling. Kelly, you talked about that. You're in the situation. You talked about explaining to players what you were going to do. Why did you do that at that moment? Why did you not just go up to the referee and have that conversation? Why did you talk to players?
Because they were yelling. They were getting upset at the ref. Like they were starting to say, "Come on, ref, that should have been a foul," and they're 10. So I wanted to make sure that I stopped them right away and said, told them that it's not your job to yell at the refs. That's not what we do. And it's my job to take care of the referees. Let me handle it. Even if you disagree, sometimes you just have to keep our mouth shut.
All right. And would you say that was, in that specific situation, was that a teachable moment? Were you able to teach them to your players from that experience?
It was, because that was one of our first games of the season. So they hadn't really learned. I mean, they hadn't really understood how the games go yet. So it was something I was able to teach them. And then in the next game, they knew. We talked about before the game, okay, what are some things we have to remember when we're on the bench? And the one girl said, we don't yell at the refs. And I said, yeah, that's good. So it was a teachable moment in just game etiquette and what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, excellent. And I love the fact that it's at the start of the season. So you begin to set that culture of how we do things within the team, and just painting the picture of how we go about handling those situations, which, as you said, Ruben, they're going to come. They're going to come. These moments in the game are inevitable. Excellent. Brings on to culture. So out of all the principles we've talked to today, the culture is what dictates if we're going to be successful or not with these principles. I heard when I first started coaching from one of my coaching mentors, I heard him say to me that if we don't dictate the culture dictates us. So whether we're talking sporting organizations that are on a professional level, might be the Yankees, it might be a corporation, Amazon, whatever it may be, these organizations have all got cultures. Just like your team has got a culture, whether you like it or not, you've got a culture. And as coaches, and as double goal coaches specifically, we have a responsibility to be intentional about cultivating this culture. One thing that I do, to give you an example with my team, is we have a culture whereby all the players, and this started from parent meetings at the start of the season with players, we ask players to all wear the correct uniform just to be part of the team, but it also sets expectations where we want players to be prepared in advance. We want them to think about coming to practice and games wearing the right uniform. I ask players to come shake hands with me at the start of the practice and with the other coaches. And one thing that we do as well, and this has been really useful over the last 12 months, is at the start of practice, if a player arrives early, rather than just sitting around twiddling their thumbs, sat on their backpack, I ask players to work on their skills. So kick a ball against the fence, work on their skills, just to really maximize every minute they've got. So this is all part of the building the culture. Does either of you two have any specific things that you do to build the culture of your team?
I think it's just little corrections along the way that really help. There's a couple things that we talk about, team first. That's like a theme that we do throughout the whole thing. You're out there to make your teammates look better than you. What can you do to help a teammate? Always look to help others first. And these are just themes that I say throughout the season. But I think for the age level that I coach, it's a lot more correcting comments that are made. If somebody misses a ball or misses a shot and another girl says, "Oh, come on, what were you thinking?" Or "How could you drop that?" I'll nip that in the bud right away. And I'll say, we don't do that on this team. We pump each other up. We don't yell at each other when we make mistakes. And so I think that's something that it's not necessarily a big thing, but it's little tiny reminders along the way that help.
Yeah, I love that. It's not the way we do things around here. It's certainly something I use, and that's what we teach here at PCA. And I don't know if anyone has experienced it as well. Once you start building the culture and dropping these seeds, the players start to police it themselves. I don't know if anyone has experienced this themselves, and the players call each other out saying, "Hey, we don't do this around here." Has anyone experienced that themselves? Great.
What?
Ruben, yes?
Was that a question?
Yeah, I was just saying, has anyone, I've certainly experienced that, and just as Kelly was mentioning then, once you've started setting the seeds and planting the seeds for building the culture, have you experienced any of your players helping you build the culture by calling other players out or encouraging to build the culture? So It was a question.
Yeah.
Apologies if it wasn't clear.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I have.
Excellent. Do you want? Can you give us an example?
On a lot of the teams I've worked with, either high school or college teams, the veterans end up helping the new players adjust and, like you said, explain to them how we do things here. Hey, everybody, we set up the nets. We don't wait for the coaches to arrive. We we get into the gym, we set up the nets. We get someone grabs a broom and starts sweeping the floor. That's how we do things here. So that would be an example.
Right. And I love what you said about the veteran players. I think that's just smart coaching. You recognize players in your team that already understand the culture and that are going to help you build it out and cultivate it and feed it to the new players. So excellent. Great. So we're going to watch a video now, short video from Julie Foudy, who is former captain of the US women's team. So we're going to watch a video of how important culture is, even for a World Cup winning team. Excellent. So, what do you think about the importance of culture within a successful team? How important do you think building a positive culture is for a team?
I think it's very important.
Okay. So let me turn that around. So if you were to not focus on building the culture within a team, as a coach, what may you experience? If you just let the culture dictate itself, what may happen, or what may you experience?
You might end up with a culture you don't want.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Has that happened to anyone in their coaching career?
I've watched teams. I watched a Little League baseball game, this fall, and the kids were yelling at the coach and yelling at each other and saying, "Coach, put me in." And the coach is like, "Okay, go ahead in." And I just watched for the first time a bunch of 12, 12-year-old boys basically tell the coach what to do. And I sat there and had trouble keeping my mouth shut. But I think it was really a good example of a coach that was just letting the kids dictate everything that happened, who went in, who played.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they yelled at the umpire. They were yelling at the other team and teasing the pitcher and screaming like nasty things at the pitcher. And the coach just allowed it. And then, you know, he just figured that was the way boys were. So that was tough.
Yeah, that's exactly what we've been talking about. If we allow the coach to dictate what goes on, that's what happens. So as custodians of the game, as role models, we've got to be thermostats as opposed to thermometers. That's our role as a coach. We've got to control the culture and the environment. If we can do that, it just creates such good ground to reinforce the principles we've discussed today. Okay, sorry, I wasn't sure if I was continuing or carrying on. So, 3 takeaways.
Yeah, you can finish it out. You can just finish out the workshop because this is the end.
Okay. So, 3 key takeaways for everyone. So we're nearly done. We're into the final stretch, everyone. So really want to empower you to walk away. So your next practice, your next game, you can really impact the players. So athletes need to feel connected before they commit. From what we've covered today, I mean, what does that mean as a coach? What does that mean specifically? Why is it important to connect with our players?
Because the players will have a hard time committing to what the team's trying to accomplish if they don't feel connected.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about filling those e-tanks, filling those emotional tanks. Exactly. Why is it important to let athletes sort of buy into the belief that they can improve?
I think it's motivating for them. They get motivated to do better when they see that they've already accomplished something.
Yeah, exactly. Just showing them that regardless of where they are on the skill level or the talent level, that they can improve. So yeah, it creates this idea of mastery. And then dealing with integrity, honoring the game. We've just talked about that. But if you could wrap that up into sort of 1 or 2 sentences, why is this so important? Why is it important to play the game with integrity and on the game?
So that people stay safe and that the competition is fair and that we have the opportunity to have a positive competitive experience.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got to be a positive. It's got to be a competitive experience. And that's our role as a coach. We've got to be a role model. We've got to protect the game, and we've got to show our players and educate our players how to do that. Exactly. Okay, thanks, Ruben. So the toolkit. Just going through this real quick. This is all in the book. You can get into the Dev Zone online. E-tank. We've got the magic ratio is 5-to-1. Why is that? Just a quick question, just make sure it's all going in there. Why do we have a ratio of 5-to-1? Who remembers that?
That was the amount of positives to criticisms that you're supposed to give as a coach?
Yeah, exactly. So 5 positive comments to 1 positive comment. So that's how that is what the research says is the best ratio to make sure that the positive comments are getting through as well as the negative comments. Exactly. We've got the elm tree of mastery, just creating this environment for constant improvement, constant push of excellence, and as we've just discussed, lastly, honoring the game. So which out of the principles do you think is going to help your team the most? Which takeaway from today?
I would say for my team, Elm, we get caught up in the scoreboard, and we want to win. We have to win, and so I think not obsessing with the outcome, and like we talked about earlier in the workshop, keeping our focus on the things we can control will actually perform better. So I think for us, it might be Elm.
Okay. So how are you going to? What are your next steps? Your next practice, your game. What's your next? What are you going to do to address that, Ruben? What you've learned today?
At my next practice, yeah, well, I can introduce them to the Elm idea. Yeah, I've never talked. We've talked about focusing on what we can control, but we've never, this is my first time really being exposed to that acronym Elm, and I think that can help us.
Excellent. Kelly, about you. Anything immediately you're going to apply to your team?
Yeah, I like the buddy system. That was something that I really connected with. I think that could be easily implemented on my team, and I think it would do a lot for them.
Excellent. So nearly at a close now. We've got resources. Everyone should have the book. If you don't have the book, please come and let me know. We'll speak to the facilitator. We'll make sure you go away with the book. We've got the development zone online. We've got weekly emails. You sign up at the start of the session, the workshop. So you should be for the next 6 weeks getting emails through. Another great PCA resource. And that's it, really. Really appreciate you all being here today. Thank you for what you do for youth sports. Even though your players may never say thank you, they do thank you. I know that. It's an honor and a privilege to work in youth sports, and I've learned a lot today. So thank you, everyone, for what you do.
Thank you. Thanks, Adam.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, I hadn't gone all the way to the end. I'd stopped, so that was a little bit. But anyway.
That's okay. That's okay. It's good to just see how, because that is the end of the workshop. So it's good to see how much more is there and just kind of how to wrap it up, because that's, the end is just as important as the beginning. So yeah, being able to have a strong ending to that too, I think is really important. Didn't mean to put you on the spot there, but I just wanted
No, it's good. No, thank you. That was good.
Yeah, wanted to see you finish. So how did you feel doing that again? We were looking for, I know we were looking for a few things. Is there anything specific that you were trying to do more so than you did the last time?
Yeah, a few things. I think my presenting voice was had previously been a little bit staged. So I tried to just be me more, even though that sounds very obvious. Maybe it's just the video sort of conferencing aspects of it, but I've just tried to be me. Try to be more conversational.
Yeah.
I try to talk less and get the learners, you guys, speaking more.
Yeah, I think you did that as well.
Yeah, there was an area about culture where I was tripping myself up, so I'm a little bit annoyed with that. But what I was trying to do is use better quality questions and listen to the responses more. I felt that I wasn't listening to responses. I was more concerned with getting through the material. So I was listening more and then pressing into that response and getting a little bit more information out. That's what I was trying to do.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. I noticed a lot of those things. I just wanted to see what you were intentionally trying to do before I told you all the things that I noticed. Ruben, would you like to start with some feedback? You were on Adam's last demo, I think.
I think I've been on a couple of them, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, so Adam, I think all those areas that you mentioned, I noticed progress you know, and appreciate you giving that attention. You know, I think you want to keep going in the direction you're going with all of those points you made.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the strong moments in the workshop I thought was culture is the way we do things here, especially the first moment of that slide. If would you say if we don't dictate culture, culture dictates us?
Yes.
You know, and then you know, it's not a question of whether you're going to have a culture, you're going to have one. You know, I thought that moment was very clear, it was very direct, it was very succinct, you know, and I think that we want to work on making other parts of the workshop that crisp and that clear. I'll just add two just kind of fine-tuning things about content.
Yes.
When we talk about roots, I think it's very important early to use the word respect with roots. You know, honoring the game is about respect for 5 key areas, and we use roots to remember. So I think getting the word respect in there early helps folks understand.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, Adam?
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
Honor the game, respect the roots, and then on the S, again, fine-tuning content. On the S, respect for self. What is respect for self? Respect for self is living it. You know, it's be the coach being not just emphasizing it and asking your players to do it, but you as the coach leading the way, modeling it, and you living up to those standards that you're asking your players to live up to.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
The way I heard you say it was more like it's, you know, it's emphasizing it with your players and asking your players to do it. That's how it came across to me. So
I think that's part of it too. Don't you think, Ruben? That's part of it too.
Respect for self is the coach living up to the standards.
Okay.
The S as it is respect for self. And as a coach, it means that you live up to the. No, I mean, it doesn't mean that you don't teach it and you don't preach it, but now that you've emphasized, you know, honoring the game and respect for rules, opponents, officials, and teammates, now you yourself hold yourself to those standards. That's respect for self.
Yeah. No, I went more down encouraging and inspiring the players to live them out as opposed to coach. But yeah,
and that like Kelly said, that's part of it. That's part of it. For me and for Jim Thompson, the key part of the S is the coach.
Okay.
Living out, honoring the game, not just teaching it, because we know those coaches who say, hey, you know, we're gonna have great sportsmanship. We're gonna respect the officials, and then they're the first one to yell at the ref. So,
yeah,
that's my feedback, Kelly.
Okay, thanks. I agree. I had similar comments as well. The first comment I had is about being really clear about what roots really is. I think the terminology that you said was, you know, the next principle is honoring the game, and we use the acronym roots, and roots stands for, you know, and then you went through them. So I think I mentioned I wrote down the same thing that Ruben said about being really clear about respect for these 5 areas, and having that solid root system. It is an acronym, but it's also an analogy that you have that solid culture in place. And I think that takes care of a lot of the issues that coaches do have in there with problems with team, problems with kids getting on each other's, you know, disrespectful issues. This is how you can set a culture. I noticed that your questions were a lot better, Adam. I think you were being really intentional with the questions that you were asking. And that I noticed that right away. I thought that was great. In this environment, when you only have 3 of us, it's easy to ask one question and then ask us to dig in deeper. If you're in a room of 50 coaches, you might want to be a little sensitive to that if you spend too much time really digging into one coach and really asking, you know, deeper questions, you might have everyone else tune out.
Yeah.
So just be careful about when to pick and choose to use that. But I thought that was great the way you were doing that. I like also the way you told people specifically, like get in a group of 2 and you're going to have 2.5 minutes. Or I think that was much clearer than you did before when you just said, okay, talk to someone. I think it's good to be super clear with directions. I wrote down the same quote that Ruben did with, if we don't dictate culture, the culture dictates us. I like how you threw in a lot of your ideas too about, if a player gets there early, start practicing some of your skills. Like these are the things that can help a culture, help establish a culture. And I like how you pulled that in from your own experience. I still would like to hear a little bit more from your point of view, or asking, you asked the coaches, you asked us, when is the time you did this, or when is the time you've seen that? But sometimes it's a great idea to have, if you ask Ruben a question and he talks about, a player that was being disrespectful, you can bring up an example of yours to kind of piggyback on that, to sort of reinforce what we're talking about. So, sprinkling that in sometimes can make it interesting. The other thing is setting up the videos. The videos are there to help. It's to give you credibility, to your point, but it's also to kind of change the pace and just vary the voice. So I like to just be really quick and really brief, as Ruben said, concise and strong. Now we're going to hear from Julie Foudy. Julie Foudy is, captain of the U.S. women's soccer team, and there was a really strong culture on that team. Let's hear from her to find out how they established this culture. Something like real quick. You seem like you were fumbling a little bit to introduce the video, but again, use the video to help you. Use it to be a springboard for you, as if Julie Foudy were right here in the room, helping defend your point here. So, and again, the thermostat versus thermometer, I think that's a great analogy too. And also that you said we're custodians of the game. I think that's a really neat phrase to say, that we are custodians of the game. What happens in the game is up to us. The one area that I did notice that you missed that I think is really important is to bring up the role of parents. This is the only part of the coach workshop where we do talk a little bit about the role of parents and how we can actually help the parents get on board with our culture. The other thing that you also missed was mentioning any book references, because most of the coaches are going to have a book. So being able to show them, when you get to the Honoring the Game toolkit, and if you'd like to open up to page 47, there are some great tools that you can use as coaches. And one of those tools, if you look at page 49, is how do you deal with parents? So I think bringing in the book is really important. The book is a product that's actually sold. So we want to make sure that they're using it and they're not just taking it away as a party gift. So getting them to see that there are great resources in here. I can't get into every one of them, but here's a great resource for you.
So just going back to the parent, Kelly, where would that be?
Where would that be?
Would that be as part of sort of the Honoring the Game toolkit?
Yeah, so it's on the slide.
The
slide that's up.
Yep.
The slide that I have up right now, it's the Honoring the Game toolkit. It says Double Goal Coach Moment of Truth at the top.
I'm not seeing that slide just yet myself.
Oh, you're not?
It hasn't switched for me. Oh, yeah, there it is. Now I see it.
Okay, yeah, okay.
If you click on the little box, you can see it bigger. But this is really, the toolkits in all of our principles are super important, because this is the tools that the coaches are going to actually use at their practice or during a game. So where it says, the Double Goal Coach Moment of Truth, Adam, what do you think that means, that phrase? Why do you think we have that in there, that this is the moment of truth?
This is where the rubber hits the road. It's okay sort of talking the talk about how you're going to respond.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the key points of Honoring the Game. Just as Ruben said, we can teach it all we want, but if we're not actually modeling it ourselves, it doesn't really mean anything. So it's great when your team's winning and you're doing great and everybody's playing well together. We're all double goal coaches. We all, can pat ourselves on the back and say, we're great, we're positive coaches. But what happens in the moments when there's a little bit of tension and there's an altercation, or there's something going on?
And Kelly, this slide does follow that. It follows that scenario where that exactly, so it helps transition you from the discussion about the scenario into the tools. Is what we're talking about actually is a double goal coach moment of truth. Blah 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 blah. So, that's all I wanted to add, Kelly.
Yeah. Does that make sense, Adam?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And Kelly, but Kelly, Adam was asking about where the parents come in, and I guess, is that where you were going to go, Kelly? Point out the yellow.
Yeah. Did you see the yellow flags kind of fly in, Adam?
Yes. Yeah, I got them. Yeah, follow that.
Yeah. So that's the parent tools. And again, it's the slides are not supposed to be individual talking points. The slides are really supposed to flow in an order. So as Ruben said, you have the scenario, the coaches are talking about how they would handle that. Maybe they've dealt with that before. Then the question says, what can you do about it? Then, okay, here's what happens. This is now the double goal coach moment of truth. Here are some things you mentioned when you were discussing. I'm going to reiterate a couple of them: modeling and teaching, self-control routine, narrated modeling. And here's where you'll find them in the book. The next one is, how do we help parents honor the game? You know, that's kind of a transition. What are some tips? What are some things that you do now to help? Parents can be a great, great part of your team, or they can be a nightmare. So how do we get them on our team? How do we get them to defend the culture that we're trying to defend here?
Yeah. Right. Thanks. Yeah.
So that would be, so the couple of suggestions that I have going forward, Adam, as you do this more often, is help look at the flow of the workshop. I think sometimes, you know, like you clicked on a slide and it seemed like, okay, we're talking about this slide, then we're talking about this slide, then we're talking about this slide. So I think the transition and kind of bridging the slides together, so it's sort of telling a story of how we'd like the coaches to move in this direction, would help. And also, I think your voice definitely was varied, much more varied this time. But I'd like to see you pick up the pace in some places. I think your pace was pretty much the same the whole way through. And I think just varying it up, you know, speeding it up, slowing it down. Little things with your voice can be really, really powerful. And sometimes we don't realize it because we just think, oh, we're giving information. But when you're watching someone that's really excellent as a public speaker, their voice will change, their volume, their pace. And it helps to bring up points of emphasis, or it helps to, you know, be a little bit more clear about something, or bring a little humor into it, you know, bring a joke in. A lot of times when we tell something funny, we speed up, or we get a little bit louder, or, you know, we smile, something like that. I think that'll be very helpful for you to keep the coaches engaged as well.
Okay, great, thanks. Great.
So let me ask you this question. So do you feel like you would be ready to do one principle if you went out to a live workshop? Or would you like some more practice time?
No, I feel no, I'd like to think so. I feel I know the material. And looking back now, it's been a painful couple of weeks, to be honest. I was disappointed with my last presentation. I was really maybe a little bit too hard on myself.
Most of us are.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I'd like to say that in person, not saying it will be easier, but it will be a dynamic that would be preferential for me, and I think to most people, as opposed to this format. So yes, to answer your question, yeah, I would. I think I've got a lot to learn, and seeing other trainers deliver it and learning from them, and then get my own personality to come through at the same time.
Yep,
is sort of an evolution, but.
Adam,
yeah, I'd like to back myself and say I'd like to give it a go.
Adam, have you been to, refresh my memory, have you been to PCA live workshops before?
I saw a trainer, Monica. Yeah, she delivered one in Harlem, just walking distance from her house. Yeah, and she delivered one on, it was on culture. It wasn't double goal coach, so I didn't know the material going in, and there were only 6 young.
So Kelly, was that Monica Livingston? You think that he saw?
Yeah, no, it was.
Yeah, Monica Livingston. Yes.
Well, what did you see in Monica that makes her successful? Do you think? Was she successful? Did you think? Did you?
Yeah,
she did a good work?
She's infectious. Before she says a word, you can feel the energy coming out of her. She comes across as caring, and she wants to share this information. Admittedly, it was her second session, so they already had that rapport and trust. But she, to your point, Kelly, she had a good cadence. She speeded it up. She got passionate. She drew things out of coaches. She knew when to push, when to talk, and it was enjoyable. It was very interactive. The slides weren't driving it. And people were talking and sharing, and that's what I enjoyed about it. And I personally came away with information.
Mm-hmm.
So she just had a good way about her, and she finished cleanly as well. I remember that as well, positively but cleanly.
Yeah. And that's part of the process, the learning process. And I think you do get to a certain point where, these Google Hangout video calls can only go so far, because really it's about those type of things that we see trainers do with the coaches in the audience, with the participants, that we can't really see here in this format. And I think, the tone of voice, how you interact, the passion, the energy coming out of you, those aren't clearly measurable skills that we can say, oh yeah, Adam's got that right now because we've watched him on a Google Hangout. I would like to see you, I don't know if I physically can, but I would like to see you get out in front of live coaches so that we can see that side of you and we can see that side part come alive, because I think that's the only part, and I don't want to speak for Ruben, but that's the part that I feel like we're not quite seeing here. And I don't want to say that it's because we're just on a Google Hangout. I hope it is. I hope when you get out to live people, that's what we will see, the dynamic Adam, the one that connects with the group, the one that's a little bit more funny, a little bit more energetic. Actually, and as you said, it was enjoyable. We want you to be enjoying yourself as well. If you're not having fun, the coaches aren't going to have any fun. We don't want to be another clinic. We don't want to be another lecture. We don't want to be another class. That's what separates us from a lot of the other coaching sessions that people go to, is that we are interesting and dynamic and collaborative, and get coaches talking and participating and laughing and having fun and laughing at themselves sometimes, and feeling emotion and connecting to a player and having aha moments. And these are all the things that we expect. They're not just things that, oh, Monica does really well because she's really good. It's something we expect of all of our trainers. And our trainers do that to different levels depending on who they are. But we want to have that wow factor at our workshops. And if that's something that you feel like, being out in front of live people, I'll definitely be able to bring that out more, then I'd love to give you the chance to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to say at this point, hopefully, I can get there. And I think, I certainly would like the opportunity and welcome that if it was there. Yeah.
Hey, Adam, when you saw Monica, when you say you saw her, did you say you saw her in Harlem?
Yes.
Harlem? Was it Spanish Harlem? Do you know?
No.
Is there still a part of Harlem referred to as Spanish Harlem?
Yes.
Or not necessarily?
The East Side. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So what was the makeup of the workshop participants?
It was a charter school. It was the Harlem Promise Academy, which is a charter school.
So was teacher coaches mostly, or not necessarily?
The AD was there, and there were coaches there. They were newer coaches. They were younger coaches. They were sort of fresh out of college, so they were very early on that. What
was the ethnic makeup? Was it mostly white coaches? Was it mostly black coaches?
No, there was there was a couple of Hispanics. All sort of bilingual English speaking, but it was sort of half Hispanic.
Okay.
There's only 7 in the room.
Yeah. Okay. I just ask because there's certain environments that I've been in a lot and some that I haven't been in very much, and for me the inner city urban environment is one that I don't feel I naturally connect with. I just haven't had the experience, and so and I think Monica, my understanding in interacting with Monica is that she's very comfortable with that, and I was. The question I have for you is how comfortable would you have been, as the trainer for that particular group?
I'd like to say relatively comfortable. Monica, actually, she presented me as a PCA
trainer.
I was just sat. There was only 7, so we were all sort of on the front row.
Yeah.
And she gave she gave me a lot of opportunity, very graciously, and it was just to add my experience and my input. So they actually saw me as a PCA trainer, which was I mean, sort of very nice. Yeah, and it was a good rapport within the group. Okay. So I would have been I didn't know the content, but I would have been comfortable. They were a nice group as well. She'd built the trust, and they'd invited her back, or we booked her back. So
Kelly, Kelly, you probably realize where I'm. I think in New York, you know, we're going to have a lot of urban inner city workshops, and so making sure that trying our best to make sure that the trainer is comfortable in that setting and can indeed connect, you know, and so especially your first workshop or two, your first time or two out, you know, we want to put you we want to set you up for success as best we can, you know. So that's a little bit of why I'm asking these questions, just for us, our own learning.
Well, you work downtown, don't you, Adam? Isn't that the population of kids that you work with right now? Yeah,
exactly. So I'm used to that, where there's not as much parent involvement. Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't, but you've got a wide spectrum of backgrounds and ethnicities. So yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So right now, when I look at the New York count, right now it's slow, obviously, because of the holidays. The workshops won't start picking up till January, but most of the workshops right now that are scheduled are in like the northern New Jersey area. So okay. I will send the list out to you. But as I said, usually we pick up a lot in our workshops in like February, early March.
Yeah.
But if there's other workshops that are not Double Goal Coach 1 workshops, the Double Goal Coach for Winning in Life lessons, that you would like to get out and observe other trainers, by all means, I think that would be really beneficial.
Right. Okay.
And then we'll try to schedule you for a Double Goal Coach 1 workshop as soon as that becomes available to get you out there to co-facilitate.
Right. So the co-facilitation, what does that look like? I mean, how much of that will I be delivering, and what might it be with that?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So what we usually do is we set you up with
I need to jump off for an 8 o'clock.
That's
okay.
I have a call too in a minute, but let me just fill it. Yeah. Thanks, Ruben.
Thanks, Adam. Thank you, Kelly.
So what that looks like, you would be an associate trainer.
Yeah.
Congratulations. And that would mean that we will look for opportunities to send you out at a workshop. We would, for example, Monica would be your mentor trainer, and I would connect you with her. I have an email that kind of explains the roles and what you would do. But usually you would do half of the workshop. Excuse me. So we like the certified trainer to open up the workshop. So they would do the introduction to the workshop piece and then pass it over to you, possibly for you to do the emotional tank portion. We've had a couple different successes. Some have been where the associate trainer has done the E-Tank and Elm Tree portion and then pass it back to the certified trainer to do honoring the game. I've had other trainers that have said, let's just alternate every principle. So Monica does the intro, you would do E-Tank, she would do Elm Tree, and you would do honoring the game. So it really just depends on the flow, and some trainers are better than others at co-facilitating. We don't also send you out with any trainer. We have a few more veteran trainers that we would send you out with. I don't want to send you out with a brand new trainer. So that's sort of how it works. And then I would look for feedback. Obviously, I can't be there. So I would look for feedback from the certified trainer to say, how did Adam do? What can he improve on? What did he do really well? What do you suggest for the next time? And we've had some trainers that have gone out, 2 and 3 times to just facilitate different parts of the workshop until they feel up to speed to be able to go out and do the whole workshop. I know the New York chapter is excited about having you on board to get you ready so that you can get practice in, so that by February, March, you'll be doing these on your own and they can assign you. Because I know there's a lot of workshops coming in New York City that they would love to have somebody that actually lives in New York City to be able to do.
Yeah, great. Excellent. That's exciting.
Yeah. So whatever we can do to get you out between now and then and practicing, the better.
Excellent. Yeah, I will keep an eye out for that email and see.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Adam. I appreciate it.
All right, you too. Bye-bye. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.